not every kid learns the same way. But for some reason, many people still expect them to. Let's talk about why that's a problem and what we can do instead. Before we dive in, take a second to like this video and subscribe so more people can see why one-size-fits-all learning often just doesn't work. The latest reports from the National Center for Learning Disabilities reports that 15 to 20% of students have a learning disability such as dyslexia, ADHD, or processing disorders. And that makes flexible teaching strategies and flexible understanding of children's learning is essential for the child's success. You may have heard of learning styles, and that learning styles research would say that some people learn best by doing, some learn best by hearing, some learn best by seeing, some learn best by moving. And I'm here to tell you that actually that learning styles research has been fairly debunked by modern science. It's not so much that people, or I'm focusing here on children, can only learn or even learn best by hearing or by seeing or by moving, but people do have learning preferences and ways they'll be most engaged through their learning. If we follow those preferences and allow people to be engaged as they learn, then they will learn better. So it's kind of a workaround in all of the research. It's not that people can't learn ways that are not their preference. It's just that if you can find those preferences and target those preferences and use those preferences, they will be more engaged in their learning. But oftentimes, children who don't learn the same ways as others or who aren't behaving in a classroom the same ways as others are labeled as lazy or not trying or disruptive. But really what it often means is that this method isn't working for me. But here's some good news for you. I'm not saying teachers need to teach differently to every child in their classroom. I'm saying it's important to allow children to learn the information how they best learn it. And that's a big difference. One is obviously that there are some adaptations a teacher can make to be more engaging, and that teachers can use different media, or teachers can use movement and use visual cues and use sound and use all sorts of different things, use movement to allow the learning to be more engaging, and that will help all of the students. But what I'm really talking about is allowing the student to take in that information and use it in their way. The best way to help kids learn is allow them to adapt. It's not so much that we have to adapt and individualize to every single student. We do need to allow the child to adapt. And I'll go into schools and do consulting where I do a classroom observation, and I'll see all the different things that are going on in the classroom and then offer some tips and skills and things that the teacher might be able to do to engage the class more, and especially help maybe the client that's been identified as the one that I am really needing to help in this classroom environment. But so much of it doesn't come down to what the teacher needs to do more. It's more about what they need to be okay with the child doing. Allow the child to adapt, not just force the child into a system that wasn't designed for them. Basically, it comes down to this. If a child is able to complete a task or assignment, let them do it how they need to do it. They don't have to do it like everyone else. Or maybe it's just that they need to show their knowledge about something they learned It might not be that they will do it in the same way that every other child does it, but if they've got the information and they can use the information in a productive way, it's not about trying to fit them into a box where they are using it and doing everything exactly as we've laid out as quote unquote the best way to do it. We should just be okay with them learning and adapting and using that information as they learn best. Here's just an example from my office. There's some Play-Doh in my office, and kids often will want to roll out the Play-Doh so that they can use these little cookie cutters to cut out different shapes in the Play-Doh. And kids choose to do that in all kinds of different ways. Sometimes a child will just put the Play-Doh on a table and they'll squish it down with their hand, and that is how they have chosen to squish out or roll out the Play-Doh. Another child may grab a stick that I have that's actually a drumstick, but they turn it into a rolling pin, and they use that stick to roll out the Play-Doh and flatten it and squish it and get it in the shape that they want. I've even had children who took a box and put the box on top of the Play-Doh and pushed down on the box to squish out the Play-Doh so that squishes out the Play-Doh and has it in the shape that they want it. They're all completing the task. I don't care how it gets done. They are doing it. And in my office, it doesn't matter if they roll out the Play-Doh or not. But what I'm saying is, in a classroom, we should be okay that some kids can do the math in their head. Some kids need to write down the math. Some may need a calculator, but in the real world, you can use a calculator. Beyond that, maybe kids should be allowed to stand so long as they can still reach their chair or reach their desk. Maybe they should be allowed to sit on the floor so long that they stay in a designated area. Maybe they should be allowed to read out loud instead of having to be silent. Maybe they should be allowed sometimes to give a presentation instead of write a paper, or sometimes write a paper instead of give a presentation. It's not about you changing everything for them. It's about allowing them to be who they are and allowing them to adapt to create a learning environment for themselves that is more conducive to their learning. We have to understand that not every child learns the same way, and that doesn't just fall on the teacher to adapt and change. It falls on all of us to say we are going to allow these differences. If this resonated with you, like this video and subscribe so we can change the way we support kids together.